Welcome to Space Matrix. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. The world of football stood still. For a moment, it was as if time itself had frozen, and the heartbeat of the sport echoed in the silence of empty stadiums across the globe. The world of football stood still. Fans everywhere held their breath, eyes glued to screens, waiting for news that would change everything they thought they knew about the game. The world of football stood still. Shock and disbelief rippled through crowds, uniting supporters and rivals alike in a moment of shared uncertainty. On August 12, 2025, a shock announcement from Mar-a-Lago changed everything. The world's media converged on the Florida estate, sensing that something historic was about to unfold. Former President Donald Trump, now Special Presidential Envoy for Global Sporting Commerce, declared a radical transformation for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. His words echoed around the world, promising a new era, but not the one fans had hoped for. The news spread instantly, leaving fans and players in disbelief. Social media exploded with speculation, confusion, and outrage as the implications began to sink in. Trump's decree shattered the dream of a unified North American tournament, turning a symbol of global unity into a political battleground. What was meant to be a celebration of sport now felt like a stage for division. The World Cup, a festival that unites nations, was suddenly at the mercy of a single controversial decision. The trophy, once a beacon of hope, now seemed distant and uncertain. Fans who had invested in the event felt betrayed, players were left bewildered. Dreams of witnessing history in person were dashed, and the future of the tournament hung in the balance. The silence from FIFA was deafening, raising questions about their authority. The organization that governed the world's games seemed powerless, or perhaps unwilling to respond. What would this mean for Mexico, Canada, and the world's top footballing nations? The fate of teams, fans, and entire countries was suddenly uncertain, and anxiety spread far beyond the pitch. The announcement wasn't just a change in rules, it was a challenge to the entire global football community. Leaders, players, and supporters everywhere were forced to confront a new reality. The beautiful game had been dragged into an ugly, high-stakes political battle. The world watched, wondering if football's spirit of unity could survive this unprecedented test. So what exactly was the change that ignited this global firestorm and sent shockwaves through the world of sports? Former President Donald Trump introduced the controversial America First Fair Play mandate, a sweeping policy that demanded any nation wishing to play in the U.S. must pay a massive hosting and security fee. This fee wasn't just a flat rate, it was calculated based on each country's GDP and their current trade relations with the United States, making it a complex and highly political formula. This new pay-to-play model created a deeply tiered system. Favored nations, often those with strong economic or political ties to the U.S., paid far less, while others faced astronomical, almost prohibitive costs just to participate. The age-old principle of sporting merit, where teams earned their place through skill and determination, was suddenly replaced by economic leverage and financial muscle. The World Cup, once a celebration of the world's best teams and underdog stories, was now about the wealthiest nations, or those most politically aligned with the U.S. The spirit of fair competition was overshadowed by financial and political interests. Trump insisted the mandate was necessary to protect American taxpayers, but in reality, it turned the world's most beloved tournament into a high-stakes business deal, prioritizing profit over passion. Hosting the World Cup was reduced to a mere transaction, stripping the event of its honor, tradition, and the sense of unity it once brought to millions. The mandate forced nations into a painful choice: either pay up and comply with the new rules, or abandon their World Cup dreams entirely, leaving fans and athletes heartbroken. Decades of cherished tradition were undermined in an instant, and the tournament was transformed into a powerful geopolitical tool, wielded for influence rather than inspiration. The beautiful game, once a symbol of hope and unity, was now hopelessly entangled in the web of politics and profit, forever changed in the eyes of the world. The backlash was immediate and overwhelming. Fans, players, and officials united in outrage, flooding social media with #SaveTheWorldCup. Legendary players like Messi and Ronaldo condemned the move, calling it a betrayal of football. National team captains vowed solidarity with nations priced out of the tournament. FIFA and other governing bodies faced chaos and threats of boycotts. Mexico and Canada, blindsided, explored legal action against the U.S. major sponsors like Adidas and Coca-Cola threatened to pull out, fearing association with a tainted event. The financial engine of the World Cup sputtered as sponsors and broadcasters reconsidered their investments. The tournament's credibility and future were suddenly in jeopardy. The financial fallout was immediate and catastrophic. In a matter of hours, global markets reacted with panic, wiping billions off the value of major companies tied to the tournament. Investors scrambled to assess the damage, while financial analysts predicted a long and painful recovery for the sports industry. Broadcasters who had paid billions for exclusive TV rights suddenly faced a devalued product. With top teams threatening to withdraw, the spectacle they had banked on was in jeopardy. Advertising slots lost their appeal, and viewership projections plummeted, leaving networks with massive losses and uncertain futures. Sponsors who had invested heavily for global exposure saw their investments turn toxic overnight. Crisis meetings erupted across the industry, with anxious executives debating whether to pull out entirely or renegotiate deals. The reputational risk was enormous, and many brands feared being associated with a failing event. The economic structure of the World Cup, once seen as unbreakable, began to crumble. Infrastructure projects stalled, and local contractors faced bankruptcy as payments dried up. Hotels, airlines, and local businesses in host cities faced mass cancellations and financial ruin. The anticipated influx of fans and tourists vanished, leaving empty rooms, grounded flights, and shuttered shops in their wake. The promised economic boom turned into a looming bust. Streets that should have been filled with celebration were eerily quiet, and the local economy teetered on the edge of collapse. Smaller football federations, especially in Africa and South America, faced existential threats. With prize money and global exposure evaporating, their very survival was at stake. Many feared they would be left behind, unable to fund basic operations or support their players. For many, missing the World Cup meant the collapse of youth programs and domestic leagues. Dreams of young athletes faded, and entire communities lost the hope and unity that football once brought. The mandate didn't just kill dreams, it threatened the very survival of football in vulnerable nations. Coaches, players, and fans alike faced an uncertain future, wondering if their passion would ever recover. The billion-dollar disaster was no longer just a headline, it was a global crisis unfolding in real time. News outlets around the world broadcast the chaos, and the world watched as the beautiful game teetered on the brink. The entire football family was at risk. From fans in packed stadiums to children playing in dusty fields, everyone felt the shockwaves of the collapse, united in uncertainty and fear for the future of the sport they loved. Beyond the headlines, the human cost was devastating. Ghana's national team, after years of hard work, faced exclusion due to unaffordable fees, crushing players' dreams and national pride. Small business owners like Maria Sanchez in Los Angeles, who invested everything for the World Cup, now faced bankruptcy as fans canceled plans. Fans from Uruguay, who saved for years to attend, were left with worthless tickets and shattered hopes. Even U.S. volunteers, once proud to host, now felt shame and frustration. The mandate poisoned the goodwill and excitement that made the World Cup special. Across continents, the event meant to unite was now dividing and devastating communities. The stories of heartbreak multiplied, from players to fans to local workers. The World Cup's promise of joy and unity was replaced by bitterness and loss. The real tragedy was not just financial, it was deeply personal. The 2026 World Cup now teeters on the edge of collapse. FIFA faces an impossible choice: accept the mandate and risk a mass boycott, or strip the US of hosting rights and plunge into chaos. Mexico and Canada consider hosting independently, fracturing the tournament. Players discuss organized boycotts, threatening the event's prestige and viability. A World Cup without its biggest stars would be a hollow shell. The spirit of North American unity is dead, replaced by open conflict. Every solution is fraught with peril, political reversal seems unlikely, and proceeding as planned guarantees disaster. The tournament, once a symbol of inclusion, is now a crisis in progress. The world watches, breath held, as the fate of football's greatest event hangs in the balance. The celebration has become a battleground. The soul of the World Cup is at stake. As the dust settles, deeper questions emerge about the future of football. Has the game become too entangled with politics and money? The crisis exposed vulnerabilities in the sport's governance and values. Will nations ever trust the hosting process again, knowing rules can change overnight? FIFA's credibility is shattered, and the future of global tournaments is uncertain. Perhaps this disaster will force football to reclaim its core values and empower players and fans. The world's passion for the game could spark positive change, or mark the end of an era. The path chosen now will define the soul of football for generations to come.